It's Friday, December 2. In the headlines, an education transformation update, a public advisory about the upcoming public holidays. Regionally, the Bahamas seeks help to investigate the collapse of cryptocurrency exchange FTX. And in sports, Windies versus Australia, and an update on the FIFA World Cup 2022. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale.
Education Minister Favour Williams gave an update on the progress of the implementation of recommendations from the report titled the 2021 Orlando Patterson Report on Education.
So the very first recommendation is that in future years, all secondary schools be evaluated and ranked using the value-added procedure, complementing the traditional evaluation of the National Education Inspectorate. And if you recall, the National Education Inspectorate started many years ago, and it has been diligently producing evaluation of our schools.
Minister Williams says the recommendations for the licensing of teachers is at an advanced stage. Another recommendation is that there should be an education philosophy.
The Ministry of Education has spent some time deliberating, drafting and redrafting, and at this point we do have a proposed education philosophy. And it reads as follows: education in Jamaica is designed to support the holistic development of each person, focused on their intellectual, social, moral, physical, emotional, and spiritual development through diverse and equitable educational opportunities and inclusive developmental pathways. A love for learning and humanity is engendered, resulting in citizens of moral and cultural excellence and the requisite competence for them to thrive in a changing world.
As for the management of education information, Minister Williams says a firm has been engaged to manage the process. For the news on PBCJ, I am Carla Thomas Hewitt.
The Ministry of Education and Youth has begun development and some partial implementation of several initiatives geared towards helping to stem the fallout of the excessive negative behaviors that have escalated in recent years within the Jamaican school system at all levels. There has been growing concern from all sectors of society, including the government, at the rapid decline of behaviors of the nation's children. Maya Chung has this report.
The problems caused by the coronavirus pandemic caused a rollout of several mitigation strategies by the government, which in the main resulted in the failure to keep children in school consistently or maintain and sustain normal and very necessary school schedules. As at 2020, a large proportion of the nation's children of all ages completely stopped attending school. Dr. Kassan Troop, Chief Education Officer of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, MOEI, told the meeting held at the House of Parliament that a, quote, new portfolio, end quote, within the ministry has been and is still being developed to try to stop the further slide into ruination of the country's children's academic life and education development. She was responding to Chairman of the Committee, Member of Parliament Michael Phillips's query about how the nation's education leaders planned on moving forward into 2023 and beyond to address the outsized behavioral issues using guidance counseling techniques.
It's really a comprehensive approach that we have to take, Chair, with respect to this. We have done our own internal analysis, and at this time we are planning for the budget for the new year. And so the behavioral support is forefront of the discussion right now. So the approach that we have come up with really looks at establishing a student support and wellness service portfolio in our schools, more so at the secondary level. That will see the deans of discipline, the guidance counselors, the health and family life educators, the student support pathway coaches, and our nurses working together as a team right? We have been placing or deploying these persons in our schools, and they have different JDs.
She indicated that something the ministry is looking at is joining various teams of traditional school personnel, pulling them together to solve the problems. Dr. Troop indicated that a significant part of the plan is to increase human resources as well as physical resources.
The plan is to increase that. We have done the analysis at the number of deans of discipline, those posts that need to be created, in addition to looking at the demands in our shift schools and our schools with separate campuses, that came to the table as well. We're looking at our school nurses as part of building out and making sure the wellness component. We did this year, as part of the support, looking at what was coming through the videos, we developed what we call a socio-emotional learning plan. An entire program was written to support our schools. So instead of waiting on each individual school to build out their own program, we actually got the clinical workers in the central ministry, with the help of our Ministry of Health and Wellness team, to build out that program. That was also supported by UNICEF with the Return to Happiness program, which was focused on the teachers themselves, because you can't give from an empty cup. And so we had to spend some time building the teachers and helping them to treat their own challenges of the time, and also to be ready to do the check-in with the students. And so a number of those things have been doing. We're going to layer these things on the school-wide and behavior intervention system, which is our SWPBIS. That's a framework for everything. And we have different tiers of support at different levels.
She updated the committee that some of the tactics have already been rolled out, seeing some schools doing really well while others still need maximum support.
We're trying to put psychosocial at the forefront. There is a sense of nervousness when it comes on to our educators. They want to do well academically. They want to teach the curriculum. They want to pass CXC. And so when we ask them to pause with the academics, with the cognitive domain, and to focus on the psychosocial, there's a sense of nervousness. They think that they can't suspend that aspect of the curriculum. We have to empower them to do that, because you have to teach to the child. There is a child in front of you that needs to treat with some socio-emotional situations. Deal with that. And I have said to our principals that you can maximize after, because you will see that a child who's ready will capture more in the latter part than you are forcing these things that they're not really registering for the children. So we have to retool the system to focus on that and to give that prominence.
The government has been working assiduously since 2020 to stem and halt the negative fallout that the COVID-19 pandemic had on the Jamaican school system, and by extension the nation's youth. Reporting for PBCJ News, I'm Maya Chung.
The Ministry of Labour and Social Security has advised that the Holiday Public General Act provides that whenever Christmas Day falls on a Sunday, then the Monday, December 26, and the Tuesday, December 27, are to be observed as public general holidays. Consequently, the public is being advised that as Christmas Day falls on a Sunday this year, Monday, December 26, 2022, and Tuesday, December 27, 2022, will be observed as public general holidays. Similarly, the ministry said as New Year's Day falls on a Sunday, Monday, January 2, 2023, will be observed as a public general holiday. Time now for the business report.
In keeping with its environmental, social, and governance ESG agenda, Food and Financial Services Company Grace Kennedy GK recently launched a new energy policy which will see the entity transitioning several operations across its business to solar energy. Group Chief Executive Officer Don Waby, speaking at a recent investor briefing, said that energy reduction and cost was a big area of focus for the company as it seeks to incorporate more solar going forward.
Energy reduction and costs, big focus for us. We have invested $3 million to implement solar systems. The numbers that I'm seeing, savings for our factories, high-low and other companies, is significant, and we're going to continue to try in every way, in a sustainable way, to drive down our energy costs.
Mr. Weby states that implementing this practice is the only way to stay competitive in both the regional and global space. And now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Thursday, November 24, the US dollar sold for an average of $154.50. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $115.64. The pound sterling traded for $187.81, and the euro sold for an average of $163.29. In JSE trading, the JSE index advanced by 2,956.32 points. The junior market index declined by 70.39 points. The combined market index advanced by 2,123.55 points, and the All Jamaican Composite Index advanced by 4,498.12 points. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 102 stocks, of which 40 advanced, 50 declined, and 12 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, Barita Investments Limited, and Berger Paints Jamaica Limited. Stocks declined for Access Financial Services Limited, Caribbean Cement Company Limited, and Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited. Trading firm were Epley at 7.50%, preference shares due 2024, I Create Limited ordinary shares, and Jetcon Corporation Limited. The overall volume leaders were MFS Capital Partners Limited with over 3 million units, Trans Jamaican Highway Limited, and Dollar Financial Services Limited with over 1 million units. In regional stocks in Trinidad and Tobago, Clico Investment Fund was the only active security with over 11,000 shares. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, Government of Barbados Bonds Series B was the volume leader with over 40,000 shares. They were followed by Epley Caribbean Property Fund, Value Fund with 1,000 shares, and Goddard Enterprises Limited, which traded 200 shares. In regional business, the Association of Trinidad and Tobago Insurance Companies is warning consumers to expect double-digit increases in reinsurance costs in 2023. We have more in this report.
The local insurance industry is in the middle of a hardening reinsurance market, which will result in double-digit increases in their reinsurance costs in 2023. The Association of Trinidad and Tobago Insurance Companies outlines that many factors outside of the control of the local industry have contributed to this. These include extreme weather patterns such as hurricanes and floods on a global scale, inflation fueled by supply chain issues, rising energy prices, and geopolitical conflict, COVID-19, which has resulted in increased costs of construction materials, auto parts, and medical and legal services, and German reinsurers' capacity challenges due to the EU blacklisting of Trinidad and Tobago. The impact of these factors on international reinsurers will be passed on to the Caribbean insurance markets, ATIC adds.
In international business, U.S. stocks finished mixed as a slump in Salesforce shares dragged the Dow lower. Here's a look.
Wall Street ended mixed on Thursday as a sell-off in Salesforce weighed on the Dow, hitting investors with a reality check after Wednesday's rally and ahead of Friday's jobs report. The Dow ended about 0.5% lower, the S&P 500 finished only slightly lower, and the Nasdaq saw a fractional gain. The mood on Thursday was a stark contrast from the day before, when Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell signaled it was time to slow the pace of interest rate hikes, sparking a surge in the stock market. James Demmert, founder and chief investment officer at Main Street Research, says Wall Street might have gotten ahead of itself.
I think today investors are recognizing that, hey, is this just another bear market trap? And so you sort of see some selling, some buying as people are performance chasing, but lots of selling meeting that. The Dow down a lot more than the other indexes because Salesforce down 10%, which is a big part of that index. So I think it's the day after. You've got a lot going on, but certainly a big rally yesterday.
Salesforce recovered some losses but still ended down more than 8% after the software maker said Brett Taylor would step down as co-CEO in January, raising questions in investors' minds about why he was leaving the company. Dollar General slipped 7.5% after the discount retailer cut its annual profit forecast, while Costco shed 6.5% after the membership-only retail chain reported slower sales growth in November. But shares of some mega-cap growth stocks rose, including Apple, Facebook owner Meta Platforms, and Netflix, helping the Nasdaq finish in the green.
In market data for oil futures ticked higher ahead of a meeting of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and its allies on Sunday, and an EU ban from Monday on Russian crude. Brent crude futures were up 65 cents at $87.53 per barrel, and West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose by 69 cents to $81.91 per barrel. That was the business report on PBCJ. I am Maya Chung.
In regional news, Antiguan authorities have been approached by their Bahamian counterparts to help in an investigation into the collapse of cryptocurrency exchange FTX. This development comes as the Antiguan and Barbudan government is making it clear there is no liability for the country, though FTX's parent is registered in the Twin Island estate. Helisha Humphreys reports.
Antigua and Barbuda is working with authorities in the Bahamas, where an investigation is taking place into the collapse of cryptocurrency exchange FTX.
There has been discussions between our jurisdiction and the jurisdiction of the Bahamas in the first instance to provide whatever collaborative assistance as part of the ongoing investigation. And we have committed to do that. And if that engagement involves another jurisdiction as part of the chain of information and investigation, we will collaborate.
The parent company of the cryptocurrency exchange is registered in Antigua and Barbuda, but the exchange has not received a license to operate here. The Financial Services Regulatory Commission had been considering the application before the collapse of the exchange.
In the application process, there were some issues that the FSRC needed to be clarified. And of course, in the meanwhile, while that was being pending, the company would have establish a point of presence in the Bahamas and elsewhere.
Cabinet is, however, satisfied there is no liability to Antigua and Barbuda from the collapse of the exchange. The company was founded by Sam Bankman-Fried in May 2019. In November 2022, FTX filed bankruptcy protection and Bankman-Fried stepped down as chief executive officer.
Fresh off the signing of an air services agreement between Barbados and Saudi Arabia, the island's Minister of Tourism and International Transport, Ian Gooding Edgehill, remains upbeat about the future prospects and opportunities.
That air services agreement will allow us to expand our aviation footprint globally. It's also an opportunity for us to gain and gather further information and collaborate. But more importantly, an air services agreement creates opportunities for an island like Barbados to start exploring how best to do business in terms of flights out of this jurisdiction. Of course, it will take some time to develop, as you are well aware, but we are confident that over time we'll be able to utilize the air services agreement for the mutual benefit of both the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the government of Barbados. Obviously, so the Kingdom is developing theirs, as we learned over the course of this summit. But we have an opportunity as well to have cultural exchanges, opportunity for culinary exchanges, and other opportunities in terms of hospitality and how we can build out hospitality not only in Barbados, but how best we can assist the Kingdom with building out their hospitality product. Of course, there are issues in relation to how best we can work together in terms of the diversity in respect of the product, in respect of the culture. And those are some of the talking points that we discussed leading up to the MOU.
St. Kitts and Nevis Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Denzel Douglas, recounted that the small island developing states pushed vigorously for the inclusion of critical matters to be placed on the COP27 agenda. More in this SKN report.
Reporting to the nation at a recently held press conference, Minister Douglas said matters such as loss and damage and the multi-dimensional vulnerability index are crucial for small countries such as St. Kitts and Nevis, hence the importance of attending COP27.
We were also making the point in those forums that we have attended in framing the agenda that there has to be a coming together of minds with regard to the loss and the damage concept or idea that we wanted the rest of the world to accept in order to give us, from small states, a chance to survive in the future. And so I want to say that, in particular, these were two of the important outcomes at COP27. There was an acceptability of the concept of multi-dimensional vulnerability index.
This course of proactive engagement was a major turning point for small island countries, according to Dr. Douglas.
COP27 was the place to bring those arguments and to see the world, the industrialized world, react under pressure to the demands of people from small island developing states, those from the Alliance of the Organization of Small Island Developing States, and those who had been told for years that because you have a high per capita income, you cannot get support of financing and funding unless you pay high interest rates. That is what we have been told for years. And we were saying that you can't just simply look at the high per capita income of countries, but look at how vulnerable they are to climate change, which to a large extent was contributed by the industrialized world. And consider this as an important matrix to determine whether a country should receive assistance or not.
Equalize. That was the theme for the 2022 World AIDS Day commemorations, which, according to UNAIDS, is a prompt to work for the proven practical actions needed to address inequalities and help in AIDS. In Trinidad and Tobago, the Ministry of Labor's HIV Workplace Advocacy Unit will action the National Workplace Policy on HIV and AIDS.
This will ensure the effective management of HIV/AIDS in the workplace. According to HIV/AIDS Advocacy Officer Kelisha McLean-Robert, the policy will address 10 points, such as care and support, confidentiality, and continuation of employment.
The policy really allows the support for persons living with HIV, as well as I said, the prevention. So a healthy work environment would be another principle, where we speak to universal standards or standard precautions in the workplace.
The Human Resource Management Association of Trinidad and Tobago has joined with the Ministry of Labour in encouraging all places of employment to adopt the policy.
Company's policy, and whether we adopt the ministry's policy or develop our own, a company policy is important. Then, of course, the confidentiality and keeping that information, but ensuring that, of course, the environment is safe and that employee feels protected. Because we have a duty to all employees. The duty of care is to all, to ensure that, DEI, because it is a form of inclusiveness.
In international news, U.S. President Joe Biden's plan to cancel billions of dollars in student debt is headed to the Supreme Court. More on that story in this report.
The justices on Thursday agreed to hear the White House's case to push ahead with the debt relief after a lower court blocked the program.
My campaign for president, I made a commitment. That would provide student debt relief. And I'm honoring that commitment today.
Biden announced in August that the government would forgive up to $10,000 in student loan debt for borrowers making up to $125,000 a year, or $250,000 for married couples. Lower-income college graduates would see up to $20,000 forgiven. But Republican attorneys general from 6 states sued to block the program, arguing the debt forgiveness deprived them of tax revenue. And last month, the St. Louis-based 8th Circuit Court of Appeals blocked the debt relief from going forward. Also last month, a Texas federal judge ruled the program unconstitutional and likewise issued a nationwide halt to the program. Biden's administration has said that more than 26 million borrowers have applied for loan relief and 16 million applications have been approved for discharge if allowed by the courts. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office in September calculated that the debt forgiveness program would cost taxpayers about $400 billion. In agreeing to hear the arguments, the justices said they would leave the injunction on dismissing debts in place until the case could be decided.
In sports, 2 double hundreds pinned the Windies bowlers against the wall as hosts Australia took charge of the first test in Perth.
Beginning the day on 293 for 2, Marnus Labuschagne pushed his overnight score of 154 to 204 before being dismissed. He faced 350 balls, striking 24s and 1/6. His overnight partner, Steve Smith, brought up his 29th Test century and eventually carried on to also register a double hundred, 200 not out, facing 311 balls with 17 boundaries. The declaration came shortly after, with the score on 598 for 4. Craig Brathwaite, the only wicket taker, taking 2 wickets on day 2 for 65 runs. It was then the turn of the Windies batters chasing an uphill task. Captain Craig Brathwaite and Tej Narain Chanderpaul did well to withstand the pace-filled Australian bowling attack, getting to 74 without loss at the close of play. Debutant Chanderpaul on 47 not out, while Brathwaite stands on 18 not out. Day 3 of the first test resumes this evening at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Caribbean time.
Morocco's win against Canada triggered wild celebrations in Qatar as they became the only Arab team to reach the knockout stage of the FIFA World Cup 2022.
Right now, Moroccan everywhere, you can see Moroccan. We are so proud with our national team, also because it's the first Arab team to be in this position.
Time now for an update on the Qatar FIFA World Cup 2022. On Thursday, Japan beat Spain 2-1. Germany won their match against Costa Rica 4-2. Despite the win, they've been dropped out of the tournament because they failed to finish at the top 2 for Group E. As at news time on Friday, South Korea won against Portugal 2-1 and Uruguay blanked Ghana 2-0. And that's the news on PBCJ. Thank you so much for watching.